My father's sick. I've been sending money to my mother and father for years. Literally, until I found out a bombshell that my mother's been hiding from me. And oh boy, I promise this is one you did not see coming. Do you want to know what's scarier than an email message? A phone call from your manager telling you to check the mail he sent to you hours ago. I've gotten the notification immediately after I got home from work, and I told myself that I'd check it after I got settled. It would have been less scary if I got that mail the previous day, but earlier today, I may or may not have told my editor that he had no right to criticize my work if he was going to keep giving me dead stories. It wasn't my fault, though. I mean, who wants to read about traffic? I drank the orange wine that Saturday on my nightstand in one gulp and clicked on the cursor that was hovering over the message. At a glance, I already knew that the email was about. It couldn't have been possible, right? I mean, who gets promoted after acting like the stereotypical angry lady at the office? As a child, I hated traveling, sitting in one position for hours, but now as a 30-year-old woman, traveling had become something exciting. Finally, I was going to Florida to surprise my parents. I wonder how they looked now. Was my mom's pretty face already cracking? Does she still have that smiling eyes, or was she already worn from taking care of my sick father? I tried for a year not to Google the symptoms of giant cell myocarditis, an autoimmune disease. I don't think I'll ever forget, but I gave up on what when my mom called one night, crying that my father's gotten much worse. He could barely move, could not talk. Food had to be passed directly to his organs, and they needed money. The hospital bills were getting worse, and a leave of nurses was what they needed at that point. I did not know it was that bad. Maybe deep down I wanted to see how he looked, and according to the internet, recognizing my father would be difficult. Maybe this visit was fate. Maybe it was time. And traveling did seem exciting after all, but I missed him, and I knew my surprise visit and promotion news would spark that proud glow in his eyes that I remember from growing up. But you know what they say about life. Me too. I do not. All I knew was that the surprising someone was not my niche. I should have known that when I spoiled one of my colleagues' surprise bachelorette party, but to be fair, I just wanted to ask for directions anyways. The first surprise came when I knocked on my parents' door. No reply. I dropped several voicemails at the airport for my mom, but she did not stop me from pulling out my phone to dial her number again. Straight to voicemail again. I did not think anything of it before because I spoke with my mom 2 days ago and everything was fine. Though I did not tell her about my promotion. So, I checked the overgrown aloe vera plant on the patio, no key. At that point, I was becoming anxious because according to my mother, they never leave the house. Her neighbors help with groceries and nurse come every 2 days to check on my father. Unless... No, I don't want to think of it. So I went to the back. I remembered how my dad would always complain of mother leaving the back door unlocked because of raccoons. But I and mom knew that more than that. You would think that a man big enough to scare my high school boyfriends would no issues dealing with raccoons. Luckily, the door gave in, and I let myself in. I dropped my bag on the kitchen island and casually strolled to the telephone, the light on it blinking, signaling the voicemails. I stepped into the room, and the only thing out of place was the big LED TV SNS electronic fireplace. I wonder if I've stepped in the wrong house? How embarrassing that would be. Thinking of it, the house did not have the look of a sick person. No hospital bed at the corner. No smell. I didn't come home to meet a homely house. Instead, I met a classy house. I went upstairs to my parents' bedroom and it was locked. My parents never locked the door. My thoughts started racing. If I had not recognized my mother's signature smell, caramel and tangerine in the house, I would have concluded I was in a stranger's home. But I wasn't in a stranger's house, but it felt like I was. Something wasn't right. I knew it down to my bones. I didn't want to overthink, so in a few seconds I was rapidly knocking on my neighbor's door. Miss John, my parents' neighbors for as long as I can remember. Well, she appeared at the door with an apron around her waist that she had a confused gaze on when she saw me. She called my name before pulling me into her famous bear hug. My nose filled up with spices radiating from her scarf. I was taken aback, thinking of some memories. After a few seconds, though, I melted into her embrace. She asked how I was, then released me. I barely nodded before asking if she's seen my parents. Her scowl deepened and was about to talk when her husband appeared at the door and asked how I was. I told him I'm fine and asked the previous question again. This time they shared the confused look and invited me inside. I knew that they definitely weren't inviting me in for tea. Well, guys, so much for fate. Dead. D-I-E-D, died. 2 years ago, 3 months after he fell sick. Those words kept ringing in my head. I could still see Mr. John's lips moving and Mrs. John holding my hands while they broke my heart, or rather they shared the news. I could not think straight while driving my rented car to the motel I'd be staying at until I got a hold of my mother, or rather the lying snake that's been deceiving me for 2 years. I was numb. I did not know how to feel. I wanted to feel betrayed, hurt, or even angry, but I was broken. I did not like how I was feeling. Tears pooled into my eyes as I thought of how I was going to share my news to my dad. How I really needed him to be proud of me. How I really needed him to be here. I'd given the Johns my card that they should get in touch with me whenever my mother showed her face. So when I received a call the next morning that my mother just drove in, I was banging her door. I was banging her door so loud. Then the door opened, and I was faced with another surprise. My mother's face was ageless. It was like she grew younger. Her eyes widened when she saw me. She looked surprised, as if she did not miss a beat to ask what I was doing there. I barged inside, hitting my shoulders against hers. I was raging inside. I could not bring myself to ask questions when I already knew the answers. We stood in silence for a few minutes while I took the time to really look at her. I still remember how my voice quivered. Then I asked her about father. "He's dead," came her cold reply. And just like that, the tears I've been holding in came pouring. How? Why? Was the questions that poured from my mouth. She knew that I was not talking about how he died or why he died. My questions were obvious, and she was smart enough to know what I was asking. Instead, she asked how I found out. I yelled at her and asked her why she lied to me. How could she? She was my mother. How could she lie to me about my father's death for 2 years? How could she fold her arms nonchalantly and tell me that my father died 3 months after his diagnosis? How could she look at me like this, just overreacting? And she said I needed the money. Of course she needed the money. The hundreds of dollars I spent on her for months for my dead father's medications. So the night that she had a breakdown was all pretense. The voice I thought was my dad's was just technology helping my mother extort me. The dying voice I heard were just lies. The outrageous increase of money was just greed. I felt stupid. I felt betrayed. I looked at her dead in the eyes with tears and asked her if she did not feel any remorse. I asked her why she wasn't sorry, and she told me everything. The words she said and how she said it still rings in my head to this day. I could still hear those words, maybe because I'm a writer at heart, or maybe because these words broke me. She said, "You're not my daughter. I took you in after your stupid father cheated on me and had you. Your father cheated on me." She scoffed. "He calls this. He brought you home one evening and told me that his mistress died during labor and begged me to raise you." Her voice raised and I could see a vein popping. "To raise you? Do you know how hurt I was? Do you know how broken I felt? So forgive me if I lied to you, but guess what? I'm not sorry. I deserve this. You deserve to pay for those years I allowed you to call me mother. You deserve to pay for those years. I see both of you laughing while I pretended to be happy. I deserve my own happy story, so I ripped off some money from you to a few implants. Botox, and I've been dating younger men to make me happy, then so be it! Because I deserve it. You know when your favorite show gets canceled? Multiply that feeling with millions, and I still would not match that hurt. But mostly I was angry. No, I was mad. I'd been lied to my whole life. I've been betrayed. My father had always told me that I had a blind rage and would always deny it. Shouting at my editor wasn't blind rage, neither was driving to the station immediately after the confrontation. I deserved to be angry, and that was exactly what the detective that took my statement said. I didn't even know if what Jasmine did was illegal, and maybe deep down I expected the cop to turn me back and tell me that they couldn't do anything about it. Well, I sent an email to my editor telling him my father died. I wasn't lying, though. My father died 2 years earlier. I knew I was grieving. Not only my father, but the family I thought I knew. I was grieving the moment I thought that I was happy. I was grieving the innocent 5-year-old inmate that crawled in her parents' bed in the middle of the night. I was grieving the love I thought Jasmine had for me. My trip to the station was long forgotten on the 5th day. I was yet to leave my room. I couldn't bring myself to visit my father's grave, but I knew deep down that I could not return to California without seeing him. He was my father, after all. A sharp noise snapped inside of me and my thoughts. The hotel's telephone was ringing. I picked up and heard the receptionist saying that my mother was visiting. After the call, I grew nervous. She probably wanted to ask for forgiveness, but I don't think I was ready for that. I could not get the picture of her smirking face when she told me that my father had died, and she'd been lying to get money from me, but I guess talking with her was inevitable. We just stood there in silence, waiting for see who would talk first. I knew I would not. Seeing her face again replaced the anxious nerves with anger, and a laugh dropped from my lips when I heard of the real purpose of her visit. Of course, Jasmine was not there to apologize to tell me she spoke out of anger. She was not there to tell me that she was sorry of depriving me of being at my father's burial. She was not even there to tell me that even though she was not my biological mother, she would always love me as her own. And she was definitely not there to pay me back any of my hard-earned money. Jasmine was there to ask me why I wanted to throw her out of her home. I was shocked at the accusation, then I remembered my little trip to the station. I scoffed and sat on my bed. It was quite obvious that she's been crying, which made me wonder if she cried when my father died, or if she was happy that finally she could get rid of him and flaunt that money that wasn't hers all around town. She asked me if I was that heartless. She asked if she deserved to be thrown out of the house after years of taking care of me. She asked me if I would do the same if I were her real mother, which made me snap at her that she's not my mother. She'd made it very clear that I was nothing but a chore. I was a product of my father's unfaithfulness. She begged me, asked me not to throw her out, asking me for forgiveness. She said that she did not mean all that she said. She said that she was angry and she was just wanting to be happy. She still kept acting like the victim. I knew that if it was not for the house, Jasmine would never beg. She was only here because she was about to become homeless, and I doubted if she even had a job. I told her to leave. She asked if she could hug me, and I told her to get her lying self out of here. She wants to play mother now? I sat in the car for hours before I could bring myself to walk to my father's gravesite. I placed the flowers on his headstone. Seeing his grave brought out the tears. Something I thought was impossible with the rate of which I've been crying. Mark Howard, 1960 to 2021. My fingers lingering on his name, and all the anger I felt dissolved. I just wanted to be okay, and I needed him to answer my question. Why did he let me believe a lie? And was I overreacting with Jasmine? Was I being wicked for wanting my revenge? After hours of sitting and allowing myself ugly cry, I left the grave. Wallowing wasn't what I should be doing. I knew that I needed to. I would not let this go. I knew my father was unfaithful, but she made her choice. I won't pay for my father's infidelity. If she wanted to be happy, I wasn't stopping her. If she wanted to be heartless, well, two can play that game, Jasmine. If the court ordered her to leave the house, then she's leaving, Jazzy. You might forgive my father for cheating, but I'll never forget the way you deceived me for 2 years. Thinking of it now, if I was asked to explain why I was angry, I would say it's because she lied, but it wasn't. Oh no! I was angry for many things. I was angry at my father for cheating. I was angry at my biological mother for dying. I was angry at Jasmine for forgiving my father. I was angry at Jasmine for acting the mother role as well. I was angry for feeling stupid. But Jasmine was here, and she'd be the one to take all the blame. Maybe if she's acted right, things would not turn out this way. Maybe if I've not shouted at my editors, I wouldn't have got that big promotion that would take me to Florida and find out these secrets. Some people might call me heartless, wicked. Some might even call me crazy. But I know my anger's justified because I cannot let it all go. I cannot let Jasmine tag herself as the victim. I'm the victim here. She could have said no. She could have left my dad and life would have played out differently for Jasmine. So no, I don't forgive her, and I never will. Okay guys, I have one comment that everyone was replying to and talking about. Here it is. Honestly, OP, it's not the fact that your mother stole all your money. Heck, it's not even the fact that she's actually not your real mother. The fact that makes this woman so disgusting and absolutely vile is the fact that once she was caught red-handed, she did not even give an ounce of remorse. She still had it in her head she was the victim for something your father did, and you had no control over his infidelity. This woman was an absolute creature to you, OP, and I'm so glad you got away from that monster. I wish you the best in the future. I can tell at the end of the story, though, it seemed you wanted some sort of vengeance or justice. But please don't do anything stupid. Just move on with your life, OP. Cut the contact, cut your losses. Best of luck. I don't think you're getting any of that money back. So guys, let me know what you think. Do you think there's going to be another side of this story? Maybe OP post an update in a little bit, talking about the revenge she set out for Jasmine. Let me know your thoughts about that. Subscribe to the channel just in case there's a chance of an update. And I hope you guys have an amazing day. Remember, if you've ever wanted to try something, just go for it. You only live once. And remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.